Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a really hard video for me to discuss because it's something that is really traumatic that happened in my life, and for someone who has PTSD, this is really hard for me to discuss. And for two, it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed that this even happened to me. It's embarrassing to talk about, but it's something that happens to a lot of girls and boys and women and men, and I think it's important to talk about. So I'm here to share my experience and my story with you guys today. I have my emotional support pet here with me today, and if you hear her tapping around on the floor, it's because I have hardwood floors and her nails really need clipped. I also have my notes here with me to look at, so if I'm like looking down, that's why. It's because my mind is just crazy, and talking about things like this is really hard for me. And my mind goes all over the place, and so it's just easier for me to just keep all my thoughts together if I just have my notes to like look at in case I like get anxious and forget what I'm going to say. Before I get into the video, I want to make clear to anyone watching this who have negative comments to say about my story or my experiences to please be nice and respectful in the comments. This is a very, very sensitive subject for me to talk about, and I'm being very vulnerable by putting this on the internet. And this is the first time that I'm sharing this story to anyone other than my husband. Like, out of everybody in my life, my husband's the only person who knows about this other than like the people who were involved, because it's just really hard for me to talk about, and I don't want to talk about it. It's embarrassing. And I also want to say, whenever you comment hateful things, it only takes 10 seconds of your day and then you forget about it. But whenever I read that stuff, I take it to heart, I take it personally, and it sticks with me for months. So just please be respectful of other people's feelings. Just know that this is like really sensitive for me to talk about. So please just be respectful. It's not that hard to do. I also want to say that the people that I'm talking about in this video, I do not want identified. Don't go looking up who these people are because I don't want them to be named. It's embarrassing, it's traumatizing for me. Please don't. I don't even want people to like speculate who they think it could be. Before we get started, I'm going to read the definition of what SA is. SA is any type of funky contact or behavior that occurs without the consent of the recipient. SA occurs when a person is forced, coerced, or manipulated into any unwanted activity. So I'm currently in therapy right now, and I'm doing EMDR therapy, which if you don't know, I can make a video on that. Basically, there's like 8 stages in the EMDR process, and I'm like at the very beginning. I'm on like stage 3, and before you get to stage 3, you have to do like assessments, and your therapist will give you like a little test, and you'll check like all the traumatic things that has happened to you in your life, in your childhood or whatever. And there was a question about like SA and that kind of stuff. And I checked that like I have had experiences with that. For the most part, like I never really like thought about like those. Like I've just buried them in the back of my mind and never really given them much thought. I actually honestly kind of forgot that they even happened until like I saw that question. After I like did the test, my therapist asked me like about that because I checked that I had those experiences, and it just triggered me. It like brought those memories back up. I literally just went blank. I couldn't bring myself to tell her like the extreme things, and in that moment, like it just honestly like slipped my mind. I feel like it's my brain protecting me, because that's how I cope, is just zoning out, erasing things. I just don't want to go there. And so I told my therapist the minor thing that happened, which is still pretty traumatic in my opinion. I think it is. So then after I told her about like the minor experience that I'll tell you about later on in this video, we like eventually like finished our therapy session, and then afterwards I literally just thought of like all of these 3 main encounters that I had, and I literally bawled my eyes out. Like it was just really hard for me because I was triggered by those questions. It's like I'm almost like reliving that experience, and I'm feeling all of those emotions again, and it's just very, very difficult to process those emotions because those are experiences that I never ever asked for. I never wanted to happen, and if I had it my way, it wouldn't happen. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into my very first encounter. And this took place when I was very, very young. I don't know if I was 5 or 6, but I want to say I was like closer to 6 years old. And since this was so long ago, I really don't remember all the details, so this is kind of patchy, but I am going to tell you exactly like what I do remember. So yeah, let's get into the very first encounter. So my parents divorced whenever I was 18 months old, and whenever I was 5, my dad remarried to my stepmom. So one weekend I went to my dad's and I was playing outside by myself, I guess. I don't really remember like this detail. I just would assume that I was playing outside. And my dad's neighbor had kids, but they were like way older than me. I was 6, more than likely, and I would say they were like in middle school or high school. And not just like, whenever I say middle school, I don't mean like 6th grade. I mean like 8th grade, maybe even 9th grade, but it could be younger than that. But I know that they definitely were not in elementary school. We would play outside all the time, and then eventually they would invite me over to their house and I would go inside their house and play. And I don't really remember how often I would like play with them alone, and I don't even know why my parents would even let me like go and play with them alone, because what middle schooler or high schooler wants to play with a 6-year-old? Nobody. Like, that's unheard of unless you're like getting paid to babysit, like, and they weren't. So one weekend I was bored at my dad's and I like went over to the neighbor's house and was like, can I play with your boys? And they were like, sure, they're upstairs. Why their parents let me go upstairs like alone with those boys, I don't know. Like, I guess like you don't think that your kids are gonna do anything terrible to a kid, but you guessed wrong, apparently. This is like where it gets blurry. I just remember like walking up the stairs to like the bedroom, and like both of the boys were in there and they were just like goofing off, you know how like boys do, and everything was fine at first. And then all of a sudden I remember going in there, and the oldest boy was like taking his pants off, and his brother was like, what are you doing? And he's like, he looked at me and he's like, put it in your mouth, like pointing to his like parts. And I was like, I don't really know like if I should do this. And he's like, do it, put it in your mouth. So like I did, and then like after that, like that's all I remember. And I just remember like leaving, and I went home and I really didn't think anything of it. Like I just thought like it was like weird. I don't really remember like the emotions I felt, but I do know that like I felt like it wasn't right. And so I don't really know what happened. I don't know like if it was like the next day or like months later, but my stepmom's family like all came over, and like we went on like this little road trip, like a little mini road trip, like somewhere in our state. And we all like rode in this van together, like in my grandma's van, and like we just like traveled to wherever we were going. And I remember we were coming back and I was sitting next to my aunt, my step aunt, and I told her like the neighbor guy like put his things in my mouth. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, he did. And so like my grandpa heard, like everyone in the van heard, and they just like were like shocked. So then my aunt told my dad, or someone told my dad, because like everyone was like mad because that should never have happened. I don't really blame my parents, but like I think that they should have been supervising better. I would never let my kid go over to someone with that much of an age difference house. So anyways, whenever my dad found out, he went to the neighbor's house and like beat on the door and like was yelling at the parents about like everything that happened. And I don't really know like what happened. I think that the boys got grounded or something. I really don't know, but I do remember, and this like just came back to me like a couple days ago whenever I was thinking about it. I do remember like I was outside playing and I was like, hey, you guys want to play with me? And like the boys were like, nope, we're not playing with you because you're a tattletale. So that's that encounter. I don't really know what to think about it. It doesn't really hurt me that bad, but it does. It is terrible that that happened, and I don't think it's like the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to me. But I just do think it's terrible and it should have never happened. I should have had better parental supervision. So let's move on to the next encounter. This is the encounter that I told my therapist because it's also not the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to me, but it was definitely unwanted. I do think it's a little traumatic. So this happened whenever I was about to go into high school, summer of 8th grade year, about to be in 9th grade as a freshman. So all through middle school, there was this guy who was like on the football team, and I was like really good friends with him, and like I had like a little minor crush on him, but like not really. I didn't really think he's that cute, but I only had a crush on him because like all the other girls liked it because he's so popular and everything, and yeah. So that's right around the time whenever Snapchat came out, and so I had a Snapchat, and like you were like always adding everyone from your grade and stuff, and I like added him, and one day he snapped me and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is snapping me. It wasn't even anything to really be proud of because I was really shocked whenever I opened the Snapchat because he sent me a picture of his parts, like actual like parts, like ready to go parts. And whenever I saw that, it like actually kind of upset me because for one, I never asked to see that. For two, it's disgusting. Even as an adult now, I think that's disgusting. I don't want to see that. I don't care about seeing that. It's just not something I want to see. And so after I opened that, I didn't even respond. I like immediately like went and blocked him because like I don't want to see that. I don't care about your parts. So here is the last encounter, and this has happened multiple times. This isn't like just a one-time thing. It's like multiple times. And this is the one that really hurts me. This happened multiple times at my house with a family member who is very, very close to me. So what happened is this person would see me like sitting down on the couch, and there would be like no one else in the room or anything, and he would sit beside me and then eventually lay on top of me and rest himself on me. And I was like really creeped out because I think the first time that this happened I was in middle school, and I was like really weirded out because I definitely felt something. I don't know if it was like just like a wallet or something like that, but I definitely felt something, and at that point I did not even know like what that was because I was in middle school, and it was just embarrassing, and I just felt very, very extremely uncomfortable because I didn't even know like what to expect, because this is happening from someone who I like would not ever think would like hurt me like this, and they were just doing things to me that made me very uncomfortable. It never did get outside of just like the thrusting on top of me like with our clothes on, but like it felt really uncomfortable and really weird, and I did not enjoy it at all. It makes me really uncomfortable to this day, like thinking about it, because I just feel like very violated. And this happened, I know for a fact, at least twice, but I want to say at least 3 times. The next time I remember sitting on the couch, and I was a little bit older. I was probably in high school, and he like came down and he did the same thing, and he would just like be on top of me, and I would like have like this weird face and like kind of like push him off a little bit, and he's like, what? Like he's acting like nothing is wrong and he's not doing anything wrong, and I'm just like uncomfortable, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't really like this. And he's like, why don't you? And like it's just weird. Part of me thinks like there's like something weird about this that's like not healthy and that you should not feel towards a family member, especially a minor who's significantly younger than you. And so I never really told anyone about this except for my boyfriend at the time, and I told him like, hey, this person's like thrusting on me like with our clothes on, and it makes me uncomfortable. And like they just kind of dismissed it. They were like, oh man, that's like crazy. But like it honestly, like right now, I'm really surprised at myself for keeping myself together and like keeping my tears held back because I didn't know if I was going to cry or not, and I'm really proud of myself for not crying. But that was probably the most traumatic experience because it's happened so many times and I felt so uncomfortable with it, and it's just not something anyone should have to go through. And I didn't like it. I didn't appreciate it. I didn't want it. I just wanted to be like left alone. So yeah, I can say that I am very fortunate that I haven't ever been R-worded. I know that there's people who have encounters out there who are so horrific and way more traumatic and horrible than mine are, and I'm blessed that I haven't had it as bad as a lot of other people have. But nonetheless, this is still very traumatic to me, and it does like hurt that like people tried to do things to me. So now I want to talk about all of the effects that these encounters have had on my life. First and foremost, I don't want to be around men. I get so nervous around men. Like I just don't, it's uncomfortable for me to be alone with men at all. And I also don't trust men. And I don't think I probably ever will. And you could be like the best man in the whole world and I still don't want to be around you unless you're my husband. Like my husband is the only man that I trust. I guess that's all for me today. I'm going to try to make some trauma related videos in the next couple weeks. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel because I really just want to get to 1,000 by July if possible. I would love like 1,000 subscribers. Be sure to subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up if you can relate, if you liked it. Give it a thumbs down if you didn't like it. It really helps my video, helps the algorithm. So thank you so much, and just know that if you had similar experiences, you are loved, you are valued, you are important, and someone else has been through similar things as you, and you're definitely not alone. So that's all I have for today's video. I love you guys so much. Stay blessed and stay safe. Bye.